I cannot believe we're going to see Area 51.
Hi. I'm Paul. Break it down, boys. Stoke the fire.
This is the most fun I have ever had.
Paul! No, 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 no!
In the year 1947, in the town of Moorcroft, Wyoming, we meet this dog named Paul and his little owner, who has a teddy bear. Don't forget this detail for later. The girl lets Paul out of the house and tells him not to go far. He approaches a windmill, and just then, glistening lights illuminate the area. Afterward, the girl goes out to look for Paul and watches as a huge spaceship crashes onto her dog. 60 years later, we meet two British nerds named Graeme Willie and Clive Gollings, who will be our protagonists in this movie. They are fans of aliens and spaceships. These friends have traveled from afar to visit the most notable UFO sighting locations in the United States. Their first stop will be Area 51. Then they will go to the Black Mailbox in Nevada until they reach Roswell, New Mexico, the site of the famous 1947 accident, where a spaceship with an alien inside was supposedly found later. They arrive at Area 51 in Nevada. They enter a diner where some guys mock them because they think they are a pair of gay friends. When they leave the diner, Clive starts their RV, and while backing up, he accidentally ruins the guy's pickup truck. Next, they visit the Black Mailbox to take photos next to it. In the distance, they see a car speeding toward them and think it's the guys whose truck they hit. But when the car overtakes them, it turns out it wasn't them. Then, the car ends up losing control and crashes into a barbed wire fence. The guys get out to check if the driver survived, but when they approach the car, they find no one. Then, Clive tries to call for help with his phone, but while he is doing so, an alien surprises him and tells Clive to put the phone on the ground. Clive just laughs and suddenly faints. The alien tells Graeme that his name is Paul, and that he got the nickname because his spaceship crushed a dog named Paul in 1947. Just as we saw at the beginning of the movie, Paul tells him he is in serious trouble, and that if he doesn't help him, he could die that very night. Paul tells Graeme that having someone inside their RV might seem strange, so he asks him to act normal and keep driving north to get as far away as possible from the big guy. Then a man named Zoil arrives at the accident scene. He is one of the special agents of a secret organization. He takes his radio and informs a woman, whose face is not yet shown, that he has lost the extraterrestrial. She is the big guy that Paul was talking about. Minutes later, Clive wakes up and suddenly attacks Paul. Graeme tells him that Paul is from a small M-class planet north of the Andromeda Galaxy. Paul gets angry at Clive and tells him that for the last 60 years, humanity has drawn pictures of his face on lunchboxes, t-shirts, and many more pieces of junk. Later, two silly agents named Gus and Haggard check the guy's RV, but finding nothing, they let them go. After passing the checkpoint, Paul appears out of nowhere. The alien tells the guys that he can make himself invisible by holding his breath. The next day, Clive asks Paul to explain why they should help him. It is then that Paul tells the guys he was at a military base believing he was a guest, but it turned out he was a prisoner. While driving the RV, a bird crashes into the windshield and dies instantly. Paul, seeing the guys mourn the bird's death, decides to revive it with his powers, only to eat it afterward. As night falls, they decide to rest at a kind of tourist stop. Paul asks Clive if he and his friend are gay, but Clive says they are just friends. Paul tells him that on his planet, everyone is bisexual and that the only thing that matters is pleasure. Clive asks Paul about Earth, and he tells him he came on a scientific mission, but then had problems with his spaceship until it crashed. However, luckily, a girl pulled him out of the wreckage where he was. Also keep this in mind for later. Then Paul tells him that some men arrived and took him to the base, and while there, he worked for the United States government. The next morning, the daughter of the establishment owner, named Ruth, enters the guy's RV but then faints when she sees Paul coming out of the bathroom. Graeme tells his companions that they now have to take her with them, so she doesn't call the police about what she saw. Clive agrees to take her, but first he needs a passport, which he handed over when they checked into the establishment. He enters the office and looks for the passport, but when he finds it, the owner sees him and chases him with his shotgun. Luckily, he manages to get back into the RV and escapes unharmed with the guys, leaving the man a drawing with a not-so-pleasant message. When Ruth wakes up, she freaks out, but then Paul calms her by touching her forehead. He transfers his collective knowledge and experiences to her through a psychokinetic bridge. Hearing this, Graeme asks him to do it to him too. At the same time, the agents looking for Paul arrive at the establishment owner's house, who we now know is named Moses Buggs. Mr. Buggs hands the agent a photograph of his daughter so they can find her, and says she will be easy to recognize because she has something wrong with her eye since she was 4 years old. The agent finds the drawing Paul left for Mr. Buggs and decides to take it with him. Later, Paul tells Clive that if he transfers his knowledge and experiences, he could be inspired to create interesting stories in his upcoming comic books, as he is a writer. Clive accepts, and Paul thanks Ruth for saving his life, and as a token of gratitude, heals her left eye with his powers. It turns out she had membrane damage in her eye since she was 4 years old, which is why she wore a black-colored lens to cover it. At night, the guys stop at a bar to eat something, but when they enter, they run into the local guys whose truck they ruined. The guys chase them, but when they reach the RV, Paul greets them and they faint from shock. They then flee before the locals wake up. At dawn, the guys dress Paul up as a cowboy so they can enter a comic book store. Meanwhile, Agent Zoil is interrogating Ruth, shows her some photographs, and asks her if she recognizes any of the men or the girl with one eye, but she says she has never seen them. The agent cannot recognize Ruth because her eye has now been healed by Paul. Then, the silly agents find the guys and Paul. They quickly leave the store and escape in the RV. Afterward, they stop at a fireworks store where they steal one of the rockets before fleeing. The guys arrive at the town, meaning this is the place where the accident Paul had 60 years ago, when his ship crashed into a dog, took place. Then we meet Ms. Tara Walton. She is the girl who appeared at the beginning of the movie. Ms. Tara Walton tells Paul that many people treated her like she was crazy about what happened that night. Then she tells him that some guys took her away to run tests, and that in the end, they told her that cosmic radiation had caused her hallucinations. He apologizes to Tara, but she tells him that the only thing that matters is that he is real. Then Paul takes a teddy bear out of his backpack and gives it back to Tara. At the same time, Agent Zoil and the two silly agents find the guys. They try to stop them, but the guys manage to get away unharmed again and escape in the RV. Then, Mr. Buggs makes an appearance and goes after the guys to rescue his daughter from the extraterrestrial. Agent Haggard tries to stop the guys, but the fool ends up dying by falling off a cliff. As night falls, they arrive at a place where they light the rocket to call Paul's friends. Then they see two bright lights, but as they get closer, they realize it was only a helicopter. The person who gets off the helicopter is the one Paul calls the big guy. Then Zoil appears and eliminates the soldiers protecting her. But then the big guy grabs her weapon and manages to shoot Zoil in the arm. Zoil then tells his boss that Paul introduced him to his wife and that he is his friend, making us realize that Zoil was not actually trying to kill them, but rather to protect them from the big guy. All the protagonists attack the big guy to take her weapon, but no one can overpower her. Paul subsequently gives her a punch to the back of the neck. Seconds later, Mr. Buggs arrives at the area where the guys are, takes his gun, and shoots Paul, but Graeme steps into the way and takes the shot in his chest. Then Paul uses his powers and manages to resurrect his new friend Graeme. At that moment, the big guy wakes up and points her weapon at the guys. But just then, Paul's friends arrive in their spaceship and crush her. Afterward, Paul tells Tara that he was the one who ruined her life, and that is why he asks her if she wants to go with him, to which she emotionally accepts. Then he thanks his new friends and says goodbye to them.
It's a miracle!